Hey everyone, the Medspeds here. I want to make a video today for all you beginners out there, for all you people who are ignorant of social justice. I'm going to call this Social Justice 101. Unfortunately, because we live in a capitalistic society, not everyone can go to university. If you don't go to a university, you may not be aware of all the oppression and injustice going on in this world. Now, there is always the internet, but you may be so brainwashed by the patriarchy that you don't even know to go searching for this information. So, let me be here to help you. The most important thing to know about social justice is that capitalism is shit. Our personal god is Karl Marx. You know, the guy who wrote the Communist Manifesto. Karl Marx talked about the bourgeoisie and the proletariat a lot. A lot of people think the bourgeoisie is simply the rich elite and the proletariat are the working class, which that is true when you're talking about economics. But that's not the only bourgeoisies and proletariats in society. Oh no, there is something also out there called cultural Marxism, which is 10 times more important than economic Marxism. It's important to know that society is not composed of a bunch of individuals interacting with one another in unique and different ways. We are simply classes, and you need to make sure to understand that these classes are struggling for power. What does power mean? No one knows. It's just a buzzword. We're going to go over many buzzwords here that you need to learn to just spout out when anyone disagrees with our groupthink. So, buzzword 1 will be power. You can use this buzzword when anyone tries to throw that stupid egalitarian bullshit at you like, well, it's wrong to be racist towards anyone. No, it's not the same. White people have power. Argument ended. But let's talk about what power, where cultural Marxism and economic Marxism differ, is that the bourgeoisie are the majority classes in our society, and the proletariat are the minority. But let's talk about why having power is a bad thing in the eyes of social justice. Why does having power mean you're a piece of shit? Power is bad because if you have power, you have privilege. What is privilege? Privilege means that there's more of you than there are of other people. There are more white people than people of color. There are more straight people than gay people. There are more cis people than trans people. There are more averaged weight people than obese people. If there are more of you, societies, specifically capitalistic societies, are going to try to profit by appealing to the most people as possible. This means society is catered towards you. Have you ever seen a movie? There's probably a white person in it. The love story is probably between two straight cis people. The main characters are all probably thin. All of this may make people who aren't those things feel uncomfortable. In social justice, when you are uncomfortable, that means you are oppressed. Oppressed is the second buzzword. Anti-SJWs will say things like, oh, well, you're really making light of the word oppression. Oppression is what people that went through the Holocaust or slaves went through. No, they're silencing you. And that would be our third buzzword, silencing. Silencing is when someone who has privilege argues with you. Now remember, they have power, so by disagreeing with you as a minority, their cis white words are louder than yours. When your words are quiet, that means they are silent. So now that you understand the basics, capitalism is bad, Karl Marx is God, the majorities oppress the minorities, let's get to our first subcategory. How to argue social justice style. Now, I touched down on this a bit. when I brought up a few buzzwords. The ones that we reviewed so far are power, oppressed, and silencing. It is very important as an internet activist of social justice to use these buzzwords whenever you can. As a promoter of social justice, the goal is to end the conversation with your opposition as soon as possible. The best way to do this is by blocking, stating that you've become triggered, doxing them until they get fired from their job and then can no longer afford internet, or calling them a bigot. Then end the conversation by stating you do not associate with bigots. Now, what flavor of bigot you want to call them, that's up to you. It depends on what you're talking about. I would like to backtrack for a second, though, and mention that we did touch down on another buzzword. Triggered. Now, triggering used to be a term that was used to describe a very mentally painful panic attack that someone with post-traumatic stress disorder would go through when certain things happen to them. However, in social justice, triggering simply means that someone with more privilege than you has brought up an upsetting topic. Perhaps your heart rate increases. Perhaps you ball up a fist and slam down on the keyboard. This is all very traumatic. You also have the right to be triggered by literally anything. And if anyone criticizes you for becoming upset or belittling mental illness, state that you're being tone policed. This is buzzword number 5. Tone policing is very important because typically it's frowned upon to become over-emotional when having a philosophical or political debate. However, social justice topics affect you on a personal level since you are oppressed. So when a privileged person can calmly talk about the matters and you can't, and they call you out on it, let them know that this is tone policing. Privileged people will never be affected by any social problems in the world. So of course they're calm. And they're ableist for insulting your mental health. Even though arguing about social justice might cause you great harm mentally, it's important to keep doing it. How can you feel self-important if you're not an internet activist? Some good sites to start fights with people include the most notorious Tumblr, Facebook, Twitter, and yours truly, YouTube. You want to use as many buzzwords as possible. You want to block as many people as you can that disagree with you. Dox whoever you can get information on. Learn what your triggers are and make sure to use them to your advantage. And make sure to familiarize yourself with the terms transphobic, Islamophobic, racist, sexist, fatphobic, ableist, and of course, homophobic. Bonus points if you can link your opposition with misogyny. Double bonus points if you link your opposition with trans misogyny. So that pretty much wraps up our subset. One of the most important things to know about arguing for the side of social justice on the internet is that the more oppressed you are, the more right you are. If you're discussing race, it doesn't matter how educated or uneducated your opponent is. It doesn't matter what they say. The only thing that matters is their race. If they're white, they're wrong. Hell, they shouldn't even be talking about race. The only thing a white person should be doing in terms of being a good ally for social justice is finding a black person to state their opinion. If you care about something, you'll go outside and you'll find someone of an oppressed class to state what you agree with. This also applies to other sections of marginalization. Women beat men, trans people beat cis people, gay people beat straight people, and so on. So this pretty much ends our subset of arguing on the internet. To review, remember, always use buzzwords. End the conversation as soon as possible, and make sure that you and your opposition are aware that whoever is more oppressed is automatically right. The second subset I will be teaching you today is how to become more oppressed. Now, you want to feel like a self-important social justice warrior, but if you listened earlier, you will know that you're not allowed to talk about social justice if you are part of a majority class who has power. If you have power, that means you are not a victim. If you are not a victim, that means all of your shortcomings in life are your fault. Why believe something is your own fault when you can blame the patriarchy or the chiarchy? Remember earlier we talked about the bourgeoisie and the proletariat? The patriarchy is a common term used to describe the male supremacist society that we live in. A good catch-all term for all privileged systems in capitalism is the chiarchy. The problem is you can't be oppressed by the patriarchy if you're male. You cannot be oppressed by the chiarchy if you're straight, cisgender, thin, able-bodied or minded, and rich. Increasing your victimhood can be done in many ways. The easiest way is to explore your gender. The concept of gender was first introduced by a sexologist by the name of John Money. Gender was defined as the range of characteristics pertaining to and differentiating between masculinity and femininity. However, this is very cisnormative and outdated. The new, updated, social justice approved definition for gender is a label for your sense of self. So, if you're male, explore your gender. Go on Tumblr. Google other genders that exist. Remember, there are billions of genders, so the chances of you truly being cisgender are actually microscopic. The patriarchy just has the majority of assigned male at birth people believing that they're male. Once you find a new gender that fits you, congratulations, you are trans, which means you are more oppressed than cis people. You may now play your victim card. Another way to lower your privilege is to self-diagnose yourself with a mental illness. Before you've been opened up to social justice, you might think that in order to be considered mentally ill, you'd have to go to a doctor and get an actual diagnosis. This is false. Self-diagnosing is totally legitimate. Remember, not everyone can afford to go to a doctor. Doctors are fallible people. You know yourself better than them. Doctors are probably cis and white, meaning they don't know what they're talking about. Do you have a particular way of doing things? Like, for example, maybe you don't eat the blue M&Ms. OCD. Do you worry about things sometimes? Anxiety. Do you sometimes get sad for extended periods of time? Depression. Do sometimes you go from happy to sad in the same day? Bipolar disorder. Do social interactions sometimes make you feel uncomfortable? Social anxiety or avoidant personality disorder. Are you quirky and awkward? Do you like the textures of certain things? Do certain sounds piss you off? Congratulations, you're the most mentally ill of them all. You are autistic. If you find that your gender is still male and you aren't mentally ill at all, there's one more thing you can do to raise your oppression. You can gain weight. Gaining weight's pretty easy. All you have to do is eat unhealthily and not move as much as possible. With gaining weight comes many other health problems too, so this will also help lower your able-bodiedness. But if you can't manage to do even that, along with the other two options, besides killing yourself, the only thing you can possibly do is try to be a good male ally, which is literally impossible because allies are shit. However, suicide is not for everyone, and social justice has not completely taken over, allowing us to set up our death camps for white cishet straight males. So I recommend following in the footsteps of someone like Steve Shives, the male feminist YouTuber, or Max Temkin, the creator of Cards Against Humanity. This wraps up our second subset. Remember, lower your privilege however you can by exploring your gender, self-diagnosing yourself with a mental illness, or gaining weight. Now I will get into the final subset of Social Justice 101. Our end goal. We've established that we want to argue on the internet We've established that we want to become more oppressed so we can play our victim cards. What is our end goal? Well, to answer in one word, communism. To break it down a bit further, we want not only justice, but revenge for all the classes in society that are and were oppressed. We want the wage gap to be eliminated. Matter of fact, women should get paid twice as much as men. We need more reparations of all sorts for people of color. We need to completely get rid of all forms of gendered language. We need to completely get rid of the diet industry. We need to rid the world of Christianity and neck-bared atheists. We need free gender studies classes for all. Whether someone chooses to work or not should depend on their mental health. The more oppressed they are, the more money they should receive. If they're privileged, they will be put in hard labor. Matter of fact, we want to bring back slavery, but this time the white cishet males will be our slaves. They owe it to us because of colonialism. We not only want all genders to be recognized, we want all forms of kin to be recognized. That includes other kin, fictive kin, and individuals who have other headmates. We want the media to be entirely feminist. White people won't be allowed to rap. All pop singers will not be thin. Misogyny will only be acceptable in rap. Movies will only star strong, independent trans women. All movies will pass the Bechel test. The entire internet will become a safe space. All opposing opinions will be deleted. The person who posted these opinions will be tracked down and killed or jailed. Consumerism will still be a thing, but individuals will no longer be able to profit off said consumerism. Company owners, business people, CEOs, and etc. will not lose their jobs because we need them, since the future generations will not be learning much about business or economics due to everyone learning gender studies. However, they will not get paid more for turning in higher profits. Now they will be paid a minimum wage, and their paychecks will stop altogether if they don't cater to minority demographics more than the majority. The opposite of how capitalism works. Realistically, to simplify, not only will the internet be a safe space, but the whole world will be a safe space. Making sure any schools of thought that don't fall into the category of social justice are not allowed. We will use the marginalized people. We will use the white cishet men as our slaves until we are able to create robots to do our slave work for us. Then they will become extinct when we eliminate them all together. This is the end of the third subset. So in conclusion, let's discuss the basics of Social Justice 101. Karl Marx is our God, capitalism is bad, communism is good. Economics are only one tiny part in terms of comparing the people who have power versus the people who don't have power. The majorities in our society always have the upper hand no matter what. It is extremely important to point out the unfairness of this. The best way to do this is by arguing on the internet. However, you can't just argue with logic and reason. Remember to become emotional and shut the conversation down. Remember to use the buzzwords that we discussed. Remember, try to get your opposition banned from the internet altogether. It's also important to raise your victim complex, because having a victim complex makes you a better person than someone who doesn't. And also be aware of our end game. A totally even playing field for all the oppressed classes and a totally uneven playing field for the majority, who will slowly become the minority and then become extinct altogether. By listening to this video, you have done something extremely important in the social justice movement. You have educated yourself. If you've looked at yourself and you've looked at your privileges, you have checked your privilege. Remember to check your privilege every single day. Watch this video every single day. If you feel yourself starting to just feel okay with yourself and not feeling terrible about the collective guilt, that people in the same category of you have been responsible for millions of years. Remember, if you do not listen to what you have learned in this video, you are a bigot. Not only are you privileged, you're a privileged bigot. And the only thing worse than a privileged ally is a privileged bigot. My name is the Medspeds. Subscribe to my channel and give me money.